Hey everybody, and welcome back to Threat X3 Productions. I am Nick, here with me today.
Hey guys, I'm Mike.
And today we are starting our new series where we're going to rank Resident Evil games, heading up to Resident Evil 4 coming out and the remake of that. So we're going to be ranking all of the Resident Evil games and what we thought of it. What's going to be interesting is that I have grown up on Resident Evil because I'm an old fogey. You've actually never played them.
I've only seen the movies, but I've never actually played any of the games. I've
Right.
definitely seen some stuff online before we started doing this little project of ours.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting because I get to hit certain stuff like the tank controls and stuff. I hit those stuff with a little bit more of, nostalgia. Whereas like you get to hit it and you're like, what is up with this game? So I'm very interested to hear, what did you think? We started with 0 and 1. So what did you think about it?
Resident Evil, when I was watching the movies, it was always the same thing. It's always the virus is spreading.
Yeah.
You're always trying to escape the different enemies. One thing that I always enjoyed about it is the fact that they have the different creatures. The more damage you do to them, the more they have to evolve in order to survive.
Yeah.
And in this game, in 0, to be more specific, I saw more bugs than anything.
Yeah.
That's one thing I saw that was new. One of them is the scorpion that jumps onto the train and busts through. You have to kill it. Mm-hmm. That was definitely interesting. But they ended up breaking away when they went into 1.
Yeah.
And
I think the only bug you get there is the big spider, right?
I think it is the spider. Yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that.
That's
though.
not technically a bug. It's an arachnid.
But I like both 0 and 1. They have their own little uniqueness into the world. I like that it always follows the story. It's going 0, 1, 2. But the thing that I found annoying going into it, because I do have to bring it up because I did not grow up on it, was the aiming.
Yeah.
And then playing from a camera view and you're just kind of guiding your character through the different areas. You only can aim forward, up, or down. So you have to time your shots, either let them get close enough so you twitch shoot your arm, or you shoot him 5 times in the chest, wait for him to go down. When his head peeks up just enough, you just fire.
Yeah.
So after that, I was just a little like, now it's kind of a chore, but it still had the element of there's an enemy around every corner.
Yeah.
So I definitely enjoyed all the games because it still stuck with horror. The monsters are definitely my biggest thing. I want to see, playing through the other games because I've only gone through 0 and 1.
Right.
I would definitely say 1 is probably my favorite.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Huh. What do you think about the controls? Because luckily we'll be going through the other ones. They're going to be a little bit more modernized. These are the ones that we kind of have to trudge through because they have the tank controls.
Yeah, I mean, like the storage thing.
Yeah.
Because you don't have like an external storage you can actually go to. You have to leave everything on the ground, which I found really annoying because I have ADHD. So I'm seeing all this and it's
I know.
OCD.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, no, okay.
Like that one key that I haven't used yet. I'm obviously going to get to it and
yeah.
I'm going to need it. And oh crap, that's where did I leave that? In the
Where did I leave
library?
that? In the library,
with
and then
a
I'm
wrench
tracking
and...
through the different things.
Yeah.
Luckily, at least on the map, you can see the little... They do give you like a mark indicator.
I'm pretty sure that's modernized. I'm pretty sure that was not in the originals because
that would be hell.
Yeah, that would be
Where
hell.
did I leave my shotgun?
Yeah.
In the 50 rooms back.
Exactly. Yeah. Now with both 0 and 1, they did modernize the controls where there's the alternative mode. The alternative is just the analog and you go in the direction that you push the analog. However, you can still use the directional pads, and that's back. It's back to tank controls where anywhere you're facing, you press up and you're going forward. You press back and you're going back. So that's the tank controls I was talking about.
I didn't mind it because I've played other games like that.
Okay, good.
Because it's just one of those things where it's its own feel. It's its own little experience because it's kind of like I now have to figure out where I need to go because now it's a trick. I have to think, okay, I can't
Do you
just
think
do
that
this.
added to
It added
suspense?
to difficulty. It added
Okay.
to difficulty because
Okay.
you're in a moment of panic if they're a little too close. You're like, okay, I'm going to push this button to back up, but actually I'm going forward or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Because I do think that, especially just trying to put my head back in the 90s, right, when these would have originally came out. Well, I guess Zero came out later. Anyways, that whole chestnut. But in the 90s, when the very first original one first came out, trying to put myself back there, I do feel like it added to the tension, like you were saying, because it did make it more difficult. It wasn't just like, I'm running. It's not top down, which a lot of other games would probably be, or it would be in third person.
Yeah,
like I
that
guess
would definitely
Silent
make it a lot
Hill.
easier. Yeah.
Silent Hill comes to mind, where in Silent Hill it's all 3D, so you're able to move yourself around and go like. Whereas this, not only do you have the tank controls, but then you have the fixed camera.
Yeah, the fixed
So
camera in each one.
You're sort of removed from the fact that it's not you technically who's moving around the environment. It's this 3D pixel that is. But still, I do feel like adding in the difficulty of the game and how you interact with it did sort of add to it at the time. Now going back to it, not so much. It's more like just like I just want to do it. Now the alternative one where you use the analog and it goes wherever, that one worked pretty good for me in Zero. For some reason with one, which I think the remastered versions, it's like the X-Men's timeline. It's all over the place. But with the remastered, which what we were playing on it because we were playing on our PlayStation 4s, with the remastered version, I think one came out before Zero, and so they remastered one, then they remastered Zero. Well, I think in between they fixed some stuff because Zero's alternate mode, where I'm using the analog, I feel like it messed up a lot less. Whereas if I was using the analog and I was playing in one, if I was in the main, foyer, and it went and the camera switched, so now I was looking at like the doors over here, I would accidentally start going this way again, and so then it would switch cameras, and then I would
you'd
switch
be
cameras.
stuck in that lock mode. Yeah, I know
So
what you mean now.
I ended up having to use the tank controls on one in particular because the alternative was horrible. Whereas Zero, I feel like they got their
definitely-
stuff together because I feel like I could, on average, use the analog. Because usually, like, let's say I'm pressing left and my character's going left, but then it changes cameras. Well, it would still go in the same direction until I let go of the analog and then tried to push again. And I like that. I feel like they learned their lesson, and so now they're iterating on that. But that was probably one of the most annoying things for one. It was just, I was like, okay, well now I have to use the tank controls.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't experience that much though,
Yeah.
because I did use the
Good.
tank controls. I just felt like that was just the better way, the better way to go.
Yes, indeed it was. Yeah, I think going to Zero, I think the story was, great. It was interesting to a certain extent to understand how the T virus got spread in the first place, because obviously in one you kind of just like, oh, it just got out, right? But Zero, you kind of go back in time, you realize that it's this dude who released it out of revenge for this one person. So it's like, okay, now we're getting the behind the scenes. Because, like in the movie, I guess, right, you have that one guy. He's the one who started it all. But in one, the original game, we didn't really have that. It's just like, oh, it somehow got out. And I do believe if you go to, like, the different documents and you read every single document, you'll get the full picture. But just, like, watching the cutscenes and walking through it yourself, you didn't really get that, I feel like, as much. So Zero really helps fill in the blanks as far as, okay, yeah, this person, he did it because he wanted revenge on Raccoon. So it's like,
he
okay,
wanted
I like
revenge
that.
on Raccoon for the murder of I can't remember his
Marcus?
name. Marcus. Yeah,
maybe?
and then the Leech Queen took over and actually started to get the ball rolling on that.
Yeah. So I mean, like,
Maybe that's why I didn't have that type of experience. I was able to play 0, then 1, and then continue forward.
Right. So I mean, I really liked it then. Starting on a subway, not on a subway, but starting on a train was an interesting decision because
you were forced to crash land, and then the train's just there.
Yeah, but I mean, it was interesting in the sense that like these games are already very one directional. Mm-hmm. But then starting us on a tank was like literally like there's two directions you can go. I mean, sure, some of them are, they have a second floor to them, but it was almost like a tutorial in a way, right? Because then we go to the mansion. The mansion's a lot more open. There's more directions that we can go. But it's weird because in chronological order, Resident Evil came out. Then it was like 1, 2, 3. Then they remade 1 on the GameCube, then 0. So it's like, in a weird way, this is a tutorial level, in a sense, made 10 or so years later.
Yeah, no, I can see what you mean by that.
So, I don't know, just a weird observation as far as, like, it's just weird how...
You know what we forgot, guys? I think after 10 years, I think people are having too many issues. I think we need to make an actual tutorial game and put it all the way in the back to explain everything.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's how it feels like. I mean, so yeah, we do have an interesting experience because we got to go through 0, then 1. Because, yeah, now I feel like 1 was easier to go through because especially once you get to the mansion, it's like you got to go over here and then you need the spade key. Well, the spade key's way over here, and then you need the heart key. The heart key's downstairs or something, and then so there's just, it's all over the place. So starting on the train was actually interesting because it's really just, yes, you're going from the front of the train to the back of the train, the back of the train to the front of the train, but it's one directional, right? It's not really, it was a little confusing, but I feel like it was much more manageable as far as like you were saying with the limited, items that you can have on yourself. It was much more easily manageable so that it kind of eased me into, okay, now you're in the mansion and now there's tons of things to worry about.
Yeah, you have to basically find a central location and then just hope for the best. I mean, at least with the train, one thing I noticed with all the games is it's always the same thing. You just have one direction you're going. You have a little bit of area individually divided, but at least that added a little exploration.
Yeah.
But you can always go back and forth. When you got to the mansion, it was a lot harder for me to at least keep track of everything. Mm-hmm. But I noticed it was much easier just to know where all the big baddies are. Just know where everything is and just start prepping all the different locations so that way I can just run back and forth. But I mean, I agree with you on one thing. The controls in 1, it definitely needed a little bit more worked on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, with 0 going into the mansion, with all the games, they always have a facility that it's focused on something that they're experimenting specifically. Like, they all have a code name.
Right, yeah.
And one thing with the leeches that creeped me out, that I never liked it. I didn't like the ooze. I never liked the leeches. And then the person who got to just make them move and make different things out of it, it was interesting to see because when they updated it, it's actually really good. It's one of those older games you can go back and play.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think 0's strongest is its opening, like, 2 acts. Because I do believe once you kind of get into, like, the underground and you're getting into that facility and it's starting to wind down, I feel like then it becomes too much like the original Resident Evil. Whereas now we have this tyrant we have to fight, and we fight him, but then he comes back. And so I feel like it becomes too much like 1. But up until that, like you said, we had the scorpion, we had the centipede, we had all these interesting...
There was a little more dynamic.
Yes, there was way more of a dynamic. But once we got into the last act, it was pretty much like, okay, now we have to bring home the classics, I guess, where it's just like, let's just do Resident Evil 1 again, because the Tyrant just felt way too Resident Evil 1. So I feel like it kind of let me down in the sense of like, oh, okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean that's all the games though, and
True.
even the movies. It's always they have a big baddie, the tyrant or the nemesis, and I mean he's always going to be that for all the games. And for at least for Zero, they had some extra different things. When you go into 1, they got rid of the bugs except for the spider, maybe I can't remember.
Yeah.
But it always kept to there's zombies. There's special zombies with mutated different, body parts that turn into like little mini bosses.
So I mean that's Zero. Zero's good. Billy gets to go free because Rebecca's like, you're not so bad. Go ahead.
Just an ex-Marine. You're just gonna let him go on his own.
Yeah.
We have absolutely no backstory besides some of the information.
So then, 1 is the Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine.
You're all right.
Jill Valentine. So we get their story. Back in the 90s, there was a TV show.
There was a TV show.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show. But no, back in the 90s when Resident Evil first came out, Resident Evil was weird, but it wasn't quite like peak weird yet. So like, but oh my God, have you seen the opening scene from Resident Evil, the original one?
The opening.
I can't remember. Did they do that in the remake? So anyways, that's the original opening. So I do love just revisiting it every once in a while because it's just so
bad, but it's so
peak
good.
90s.
It's so bad, but it's so good.
Yeah. So anyway, my point of going through all that was to say that yes, it was always weird, but it hadn't gone peak weird because I feel like in 4, 5, and 6 is when it starts going peak weird because you start having the weird tentacles and stuff like that. So we're still like somewhat grounded in, okay, we're zombies, right? There's zombies and stuff like that. This one is the one that has the giant snake and the giant spider, but still kind of milquetoast, I think. Because Zero coming out after 1, I know, weird, huh? Zero coming out after 1, I feel like gets some things better, like the variety in bosses. We got the scorpion, we got the centipede, we got, I feel like there was much more variety versus Resident Evil, because I think the very original one, I don't know if there's the snake and the spider. I think that only happens in the remake. So we just get so much more in Zero because it is technically a newer game. And Resident Evil, the remake, is, just kind of like, okay. So, I mean, same thing happens. We go into the mansion, then we go down into the, the bottom things, and then we try to get the F out of there. Very kind of, like I said, milquetoast.
Milquetoast, generic Resident Evil vibe.
Yeah, so it's like it has the unfortunate of being the very first one because it's still a classic, but it's like, you can tell.
No, you can tell. You can definitely tell.
So like, let's get into ranking them because we only have the 2 right now. But where would you rank Resident Evil and Resident Evil 0?
I want to say, after playing both and watching a little bit of background information, I would definitely say 0, the remake, is definitely better than 1.
Okay.
It's got more things done right, and it has a few more more dynamic monsters to play with. But like when it goes into, like the other games, it obviously breaks out some more stuff, but it's only staying because of, the technology that they had at the time.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely going to have to agree with you. 0 stays above 1 for me for one in particular reason, and that's because having kind of the co-opness of it, having somebody that, and it worked for a story and for the game, because as a story, you're 2 people trying to help each other through this situation. Whereas in the original Resident Evil, you get to play as either Chris or Jill.
Yeah.
And so you basically have to play through the the game twice in order to get everything out of it, right? Whereas now you're playing as both characters. Literally at any time you can press, I think, triangle and you switch between them. But then they made the game around that mechanic where it's like, okay, Bill has to grab this thing so that I can send it up the little elevator to Rebecca, and then Rebecca can do this. And now Bill's going to hold this crane steady so that Jill can go under it and grab a key. You know, so like I just, for that mechanic alone, not only was it cool just as an experience, but it made the story matter more because now here's these two people working together. You know, it's one mechanic that I would have loved to seen in The Last of Us. If we could have, like, if Ellie would have been just more active instead of like, oh, let's stand in front of everybody so they can see us, but not at the same time.
Basically, yeah. But I mean, I agree with you because the mechanic actually, for me, when you bring that up, it made the both characters I could actually like. I care more about both. One's not disappearing in the background to go fight wherever adventure they're off to. They're in one hallway. They're not over there. You can see both of them. You get to actively move both of them. That's actually really cool. I really like that.
I do also like on the PlayStations, at least. I don't know if this happened on the original GameCube, but on the PlayStation, at least, you could move the other character by moving the right analog.
Well, that would be kind of weird. Oh, that would be interesting, though. Now I need to test that. Now I need to go find it somewhere.
But then you can also set him to fire at will, or you could tell him to just hold your fire. So having somebody else shooting was nice, because what I would usually do is I'd go into a room, there would be like 2 or 3 zombies. I would just shoot at whatever zombie he wasn't shooting at. Because if we were both shooting at him, then I could maybe waste some ammo because I shoot that one or two more times. So I just shot at whatever he wasn't shooting at.
Yeah, I mean, I always swapped to him because he always had the better defense.
Because you're sexist.
Yeah, because I'm sexist. I always had the better defense in the range attack. So I would always just lead with him and then just let her basically be stuck behind me wherever we were.
She was your Ellie.
Yeah, my Ellie, my stay back, or my boy from Ragnarok.
Or your Ashley.
Or my Ashley. Get back there. No, you stay over there.
Stop it.
Stay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we both agree. Zero edges out. Just, I feel like the story as well is just better told in that, and it fills in some spaces that were just really nice to have. So, what do you guys rank it so far? Let us know. This is going to be a weekly show where we talk about Resident Evil. So next week's going to be 1, then 2, then and so on and so forth. So let us know what you guys are thinking about Resident Evil so far. If you want to replay it along with us, just know that, we're going to be doing this weekly. So, all right. I was Nick.
I'm Mike.
And thank you guys so much for joining us on this Resident Evil Ranked. And thank you. Make sure you like, share, subscribe to Threat X3 Productions. Have a good day.
See ya.
Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your